Peter, welcome to BeerCon3.
Yeah, I'm glad to be invited.
You're very welcome to be here. So we got into contact with each other a month or two back. Then we were chatting. We were chewing the fat about punk rock.
Yeah.
And you and I have a shared passion for it. And I think people might think you are an ex-punk rocker, but you're never an ex-punk, are you?
Definitely
You're
not.
a punk throughout your entire life. It's a way of life,
Yeah.
being a bit punk.
Definitely.
And the reason when we started chatting, it became really apparent that we had some similar journeys around going from a previous existence and then eventually into cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And your story is quite interesting because for me personally, because it resonates a little bit with my journey as well. And so I thought it'd be great to bring you along for a quick chat just to hear a bit about that story.
Yeah.
And if, and obviously we'll chip in and ask questions, and you can ask us questions if you like. But it's over to you, man.
Yeah, well, I entered cybersecurity at the age of 59. So the best I can hope for is to be, he's like Peter Cushing, who became an actor in his 50s. I tried to avoid it forever. Anything cyber, anything computers. So the journey for me, which actually has lasted my life and my career, has been falling in love with punk rock. I grew up in the 60s. I had an elder sister, and when we used to have sleepovers with my mates when we were about 8, my mates would have posters of footballers and Spitfire planes and the Apollo 8 mission, that type of thing. On my wall there was Brian Jones from the Stones, Jimi Hendrix, and that's what I was into. Love rock music, love glam rock, and then after glam rock we got this awful, horrible music with 14-minute singles. Whereas for me the perfect, I'm a rocker. I want it 3 minutes long, and then I want them to give me another song. I don't want the same song to last for 14 minutes. And I think I spent my career doing that, which we can get onto. But I think your real interest probably is that I was there, when things happened, like the Sex Pistols at the Lesser Free Trade Hall. I think I'm the only Mancunian punk rocker that will admit to not being there. And I think that's far cooler. There were 40 people at the first gig and there were about 100 at the second gig when Malcolm McLaren got behind it,
The myth around that is significant because the Manchester music scene began on the back of the Sex Pistols June the 4th, 76.
Yeah.
And the Lesser Free Trade Hall. It got to the point where so many people had claimed they'd witnessed that gig and then it spawned their own musical career that were all lying.
Yeah.
They were never there. A guy actually wrote a book about it called I Swear I Was There.
Yeah.
But there were a few people
there.
Abbott
DeVito and Pete Shelley, who'd organised it, were definitely there.
Yeah.
I think there were more people at the second gig, and I know people like Peter Hook were there. And I know Peter. I don't know him as a friend, but I knew him when I was a punk rocker, and he was a really good guy. And I'm sure he wouldn't need to say he was there. But yeah, it did spawn stuff. But my argument is that it was already there. There was a dissatisfaction with platform shoes, A-line flares, moustaches and medallions, and the music.
Disco socks.
Yeah, and crap music like Slick being put out, Scott. It was awful.
Rick Wakeman and Emerson Lake and Palmer.
Yeah.
And
So
all
there were a lot of us who
gubbins.
stopped wearing flares, started wearing cheap clothes from Army and Navy stores, didn't have curly perms, and we were looking for something, and we found it. When you started to, when you see bands like Joy Division, The Fall, and everybody else. My first punk rock band that I actually saw was The Damned, who just absolutely did it for me. So fast, so rocky. But I didn't go out overnight and go and get my curly perm cut into a Mohican. It was more of a gradual thing, really, and you did become part of a scene. And a lot of it was through pubs, Manchester pubs. The City Road Inn gets a lot of mention in books. And for some reason, nobody mentions a pub called the Gaythorne, which was around the corner from TJM Studios, where we all used to rehearse. But you saw people in the pubs, they looked a bit like you, so you nodded to them, you spoke to them. You didn't always like them. And then TJM Studios did it all. That was a massive warehouse bought by the son of a jeweller, who became TJM Music, which I think you know, Mike.
Is that TJ Davidson's rehearsals?
TJ Davidson's, yeah. And
so interesting little factoid about that for people. I've got two factoids. One of them is only because I know you. So if you've ever seen the video for Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division, it's got a scene at the end, at the beginning and the end, of a door opening and closing with a hand that comes out and shuts it.
yeah.
It's also got E and C.
I was going to say that's probably Slaughter and the Dogs breaking in to steal things.
It could have been, but it's got E and C written in felt tip pen on the door, which I assume is Ian Curtis, right? Well, that is in TJ Davidson's rehearsal complex, the one that Pete's talking about. The second thing is a secret I'm letting out the bag. Pete's band, and you can tell us a little bit about that band, actually supported Joy Division. How fucking cool is that?
That's pretty cool.
That's for all the hipsters out there.
I was going to say.
I was there before it was cool. Unknown Pleasures t-shirts.
Yeah.
This guy was in that world.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I was a big thing for me as well was I was a member of Rock Against Racism. So part of the reason for forming the band was to raise funds for Rock Against Racism, and we played Bolton Institute of Technology with Joy Division, and there were about 600 people there. We actually went down better than Joy Division. But the truth of that story is that the reason we went down better than Joy Division is because when we got there, I think Peter Hook, and I can't remember the name of the drummer, Gordon Sumner or something like that, felt sorry for us. So Hooky lent me his amps. Hooky did the sound for us instead of our roadie, who was just a pisshead, but a really good lad on a night out. And they even said to us, do you want any help with your light show? And we went, what light show? So they gave us a light show. And that was the best gig we'd ever bloody played. We had and again, it was a dream as a potential rock star that, you know, there were kids grabbing at your legs and all that sort of stuff. We did some of our own numbers. The audience was a very sort of Clash type audience, Clash and Pistols type audience, whereas Joy Division, by comparison for that audience, were a little bit arty. And we sounded great, we played great, and then we kind of like finished after 20 minutes. The audience wanted more. Joy Division were willing to let us give them some more, and I didn't know any more songs. So on stage, the guitarist taught me a song called 1977 by The Clash, on stage in front of the fucking audience. Yeah. And then we played it as our encore, and then we did Clash City Rockers, which I did know, but I only knew it because I know Can't Explain by The Who, which is another, you know, lots of plagiarism going on. And it was the best night of our lives. And Joy Division went on. It was near the end. Curtis wasn't having a great time at the time, to be fair. I thought they were absolutely brilliant. We got interviewed by the punk magazines, and the punk magazines actually put out This Was the Night of the Curbs and that type of stuff. I haven't got a copy. I've got a copy of it somewhere, but one of the journo wrote us up and said the Curbs, don't know if they performed that night or been gigging for 3 years. They went down a storm, but they probably wouldn't work on vinyl. Well, we wouldn't work on vinyl. It was a bloody gig. You know, we're not in the recording studio. We were there to play a gig, and that's all we wanted to do, was play gigs. It was fast, disposable, and we just wanted to be there and enjoy it and be part of it. And it was, and we ended up being disposable. So
yeah, and that was the ethic of punk, was fast and disposable and different. Just in the last 4 or 5 minutes that we've got, just because there'll be people out there going, yeah, we get the Bay Farmers are all into the music and all that kind of stuff, but you are in cyber.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what you actually are up to now?
The stuff that I'm doing at the moment is I'm too old to go and sort of improve my coding skills and get loads and loads of certificates. So mainly I'm adapting my own knowledge of behavioural psychology, good business process, and use of technology rather than and helping to improve it. So I'm working with tech companies to test. I'm not so much, like you've got your pen testers and you test all the software. I just sit there and go through it and say, this is how I'm going to get around it. This is how I'm going to steal your goods. This is how I'm going to rip you off. This is how I'm going to wreck the system. So I'm sort of like the criminal mind that has a look and exploits things that the criminals do. I'm not a criminal. I've never been a criminal, but I come.
Just to clear that up.
I come from a criminal family. And one of my friends who's a reformed cyber criminal. Honestly, I am the white sheep of the family. The rest of them are all criminals. Seriously, I've got murderers, burglars, handlers, drug dealers. That is, that's my uncles. And I mean it.
Christmas would be fun.
Yeah, we used to have great Christmases, and then I ruined it all. I ruined it all by joining the police. All my friends thought I joined the band because I played bass and sang. Nobody thought I joined the Boys in Blue, but when I joined the police, they all had to clear their houses out of all the goods that they had. So I'm conscious time-wise, but on the cyber thing, one message I would give out to people out there is that from the punk days, there are a lot of people, like you mentioned, people like Howard Devoto, I've been in a room with Morrissey, I'd be talking to Pete Shelley, and I just didn't recognise it at the time, that those people were going to go on and make a huge difference. So what I will say in the cyber, but the other thing, it was very like the InfoSec community, is it was one of the most helpful, supportive people, things that I've ever seen, like I mentioned there with Peter Hook. But it was also bitchy and evil, and people steal and nick your gear. We've got that going on in InfoSec. So I think we have to tolerate that, because that's part of the mix that makes it so great. But the other one is to remember some of those people that you're talking to, some of those people that you're encouraging, they're going to go on and be like Morrison. So you're actually walking along some, you're actually mixing now with some people who are going to be great and going to be really influential, and you might not recognise that, because I certainly didn't. I thought Morrissey was a tosser. But the other one is...
He still is a tosser.
Yeah, he still is. But the other one is, it might be you. Yeah? So, and it is all about keeping at it and doing it. I didn't. I decided I was going to go and be a cop. Then I decided I was going to be a fraud investigator, and now I've added to that, sort of my cyber skills. But just remember, those people out there, and also when you're knocking somebody down, if somebody told Howard Devoto that he was a wanker and his music was crap, the Manchester scene would not have happened.
100%.
So
I have one question.
Yeah.
From a musician, how would you rate Mark's musician skills?
He wouldn't know. He's never seen me play.
Oh.
Yeah, I've heard the Utah State. The thing is, as a musician, I have to assure you that no matter how skilled anybody is, they're not as good as me. Because I play my own tunes, so therefore my tunes are the best. Yeah. But other people, I might take some tips from them, but that's the way musicians are, isn't it?
Absolutely, that's our attitude. Well, listen, Pete, that's been fascinating. The feedback's been really good about it. I thought it was a bit of a left field topic to bring in and chat about, but music and InfoSec, music and technology, music and people, they go hand in hand. And it was great to have that little spin on your life, and I'm really appreciative. We're appreciative of you being open about your background and all that kind of stuff. So, thanks, man.
Could I just do one thing? And say to people, you get worried and worked up about things, so I'd like to just share my notes for today. That's it. Just be yourself.
That's not even the back of a cigarette packet.
My pleasure.
Have a great weekend,
You
mate.
too, and
Thank you.
the rest
That's
of the,
awesome.
Rest of the day. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Bye.
Thanks,
Cheers.
pal.